Hello, everybody, and welcome to round one of the Player of the Year Megadraft. We have our feature drafter Miranda, whose point of view we're watching, going up against Dan's white-red beatdown deck. Evan, how
Yes,
do you think
and
this?
he's going to start with on the play with an Aether Chaser. I will read out some of the cards in his hand. I think after Caleb. Caleb, if you could tell us what Miranda's
Sure. So Miranda's
got
going to
going
lead on
on.
this Feral Prowler here, the 1/3 that dies into a card. She's also got Expedition Skulker, Sapling Migration, and Overwhelming Remorse, that instant exile removal that can get discounted. What's Dan
Mhm.
bringing to the table?
So Dan unfortunately has to use his shelter as a land because he didn't make another land drop and won't be able to attack in. The 1/3 body proving to be quite useful. Uh, the rest of his hand is the Renewed Faith, which actually has ended up remaining in his deck, On Sarah's Wings, Power Stone
Ooh.
Engineer, and Sunscourge Champion, which can come back for later,
So
though you
it's
have to discard a card.
So it does sound like to me that if Miranda can keep the pressure off, to keep the overwhelming remorse in hand, to answer the On Sarah's Wings, then she's going to be in quite good shape, because that is just going to be a clean 2-for-1 On Sarah's Wings, an extremely powerful card, but one which does not have any of the sort of downside prevention which they've put on these auras lately. Um,
Yes.
and we might see it just run out here. Potentially, no. It looks like he's just going to go with the Exert on the Gustwalker. What's he going to play instead?
He's going to play the Sunscourge Champion,
Mm.
just get more on board and potentially even attack into it just to trade for the Skulker and come back as a 4/4, depending
Well,
on
that
how he
Skulker
feels about it.
doesn't even have Death Touch right now, right? So it would not. It would just get eaten. Um, oh, you meant
Oh, I meant
attacking with both get double blocked. Sorry, I see what you
correct.
mean. Yeah, being a card with an Eternalize ability on it, that might make it a tempting target for Miranda to use the Overwhelming Remorse, but she's drawn this Subtle Strike here. So she just might not feel like she's under any substantial pressure. Like the Gust Walker will get you eventually, but 3 damage every 2 turns isn't the fastest clock in the world. So she's content to just sit here, hold up her trick, and save her 1 removal in hand. Meanwhile, Dan, I think, the ground's getting all clogged up. What's he looking at now?
He's going to have to find something. He ended up just getting a Gideon's Reproach, which he doesn't care to spend right now. I think we might see him cycle Renewed Faith end of turn, try to find some more action.
So
But
that's surprising to me that the renewed faith made the deck. That to me, I mean, for one, that means he's running those 3/2 cats. I have to assume, but not just running them. That means that he's identified them as like core builder rounds that he really wants to maximize. Because otherwise, I don't know what you're doing putting renewed faith in your Boros deck.
yeah, I think that's pretty much it on the head. Potentially didn't find anything else really worth putting in. Has a whole bunch of 2 drops. Maybe the additional first one wasn't better than the upside of potentially, you know, deck thinning, quote unquote, and having a little bit of extra synergy with the Sabai Thundermanes.
So he does get cycled here. We basically have, a bad revitalize being cast, and um, it's interesting to me as well. Like the ability on the Sabai Thundermanes is quite good, but it's not traditionally the sort of thing that you value super highly in an aggro deck, right? Like what you want your removal in an aggro deck to be is like unconditional answers to their big blocker, not ways to pick off their 2 toughness or less creatures. So
Hmm.
not that I think this is going to be an easy matchup for him. Like if you are a Boros drafter, as I have been from time to time, green black is probably the color pair you want to see least. Round 1, game 1. But I think that might be especially true in the world where you've got a lot of your deck building equity invested in your Savai Thundermane plan. Which if Miranda, gets to 7 mana, lands her giant sandworm, as she's going to get to 7 mana. She's got the lands in hand to get to 7 mana. She doesn't have the sandworm though, but she's got presumably a bunch of them in her deck. Um, then your Thundermanes aren't going to help you any, and you might be wishing you had some other sort of cards which are currently chilling in your sideboard instead. And we're just going to see from Miranda another sort of perfect roadblock to aggro, like 3-2 trades into a 1-1. Like, if you're Dan, you're just, you can feel your spirit sinking here. So what do you think he's hoping to draw that'll maybe dig him out of this mess?
Well, what he has drawn is he's drawn a coordinated charge, which could
Ooh.
be quite interesting off of this board. Um, it would require an answer from Miranda, and could end up being for a lot of potentially favorable trades if he just swings all out here.
Yeah, that'd be a good test, I think, of Miranda's danger sense. Like, if you go, like, it's possible to block against a coordinated charge if you suspect it in a way which reduces the damage, especially because she's got the Subtle Strike in hand, which can, pick off Aether Chaser and buff something else. And I think that's actually going to be the line of play that does happening. It looks like she's taken, what I would describe as the greedy blocks, right?
Hmm.
Which is
But
not
even the greedy blocks,
even the greedy blocks
you'll
with
end
the
up
Subtle
trading.
Strike.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're going to work out for her because this is going to get played, and she's just seeing what all the trades will be.
because the only thing that's going to be is that 2-1 will stay alive. The 1-1 will die for free. And other than that, a lot of trading happening.
Yeah, it looks like. Yeah, this is not quite worst case scenario if you're Dan, but pretty darn close. You kept your Gust Walker, right, which was the one creature that could hit in, but you lost most everything else. You're gonna get to buy back your 4/4s, and it's not a complete disaster, but definitely
Yeah.
not. When you're playing Dan stack and you've got 5 creatures on board, you're hoping for more out of drawing your 5-mana charge spell.
Mm.
Does he have?
And so now,
does he have fodder to pitch to the Eternalize?
yes, he does. He has drawn a mountain, which is not really holding back the rest of his hand very much.
Okay. So he's still got the On Sarah's Wings in hand, and it looks like this Gustwalker is going to bring out the Overwhelming Remorse. It might be worth going back and seeing if there was a way Miranda could have blocked to, or use Subtle Strike to kill the Gustwalker instead of killing the. I believe she chose to kill the Sunscorch champion with her +1/+1. Because now she's got a problem, which is Dan is presumably gonna put On Sarah's Wings on that zombie token and start hitting for 5 in the air with lifelink, and that's a real problem for Miranda, who's only got a land in hand right now.
Yeah, that is a real problem, and I think we see from that Wild Wanderer that she is not opted to splash any of the red, which makes sense because none of it was really that worth splashing.
That's a good thing to notice. Yeah, I don't recall seeing a mountain when she searched her deck.
And to answer your question, Caleb, 2/2 could not have died because it wasn't even in that combat. It was still
Oh, it was
tapped from its
exerted.
exert the previous turn.
That's a good. Thank you for pointing that out. That makes a bit of sense as to why things worked out the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
Is he just slamming Sarah's Wings here on the 4/4, or has he got another plays considering?
No, he just ended up top decking a land, and I think what his major consideration is: do I hold this now? Do I wonder if, and also which do I target? This 4/4 holds the ground, could even attack in. Do I need that extra bit of? Because if she removes it instantly, I'm in a world of trouble. But if I put it on my 2/1, that's a 5-turn clock as opposed to a 3-turn clock. And see, he's even attacking here, which is quite interesting.
So this is hedging his bets, and I wonder if this is.
And he has a Gideon's Reproach.
I wonder if this is the priority scaring him, because Llanowar's Scout was active, but maybe he was worried there was something else in hand because Miranda, it wasn't just hard skipping through her priority steps.
Yeah.
Sidebar. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and here, if she doesn't do the all block, she's in for a bit of trouble because he is just gonna Gideon's Reproach.
Oh yeah,
and
oof. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. So she put one extra body in front of it, um, but not enough to have fully redundant power to kill it.
Correct.
Oh wow. Okay, this is she's drawn the final parting, which sets up perfectly the back for more Titanothrex plan, because you put the back for more in your hand, and you put the Titanothrex or whatever your favorite giant monster is in your bin. And I love that this made her deck, because this card was just totally unplayable in its home format. And here, thanks to the power of of these two, of back for more basically, it's just given her now. She's effectively drawn the best play her deck can make. So she's got to choose the card that goes to her hand and click carefully here. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's exactly right. Back for more in hand, Titanothrex in the bin, and she's just got to live this turn.
So now Dan is potentially feeling a little bit of stress and pressure now.
Yeah, your opponent entombed a giant monster and cast demonic tutor. You know, your alarm bells have to be going off here, right? If you're Miranda, do you consider jumping with a Prowler to draw the card? I guess you have your play for next turn, the back for more, namely, which is an instant, so you could certainly choose to go for the greedy play. She's got it dragged out, and I think she's considering whether or not to try and get Dan on the attack as well. Because the Rex is so big, right? It fights the Power Stone Engineer and has stats left over to eat the 4/4. So yeah, she's leaving it up, and what's Dan's plan here?
I think Dan's plan is I might be in trouble, but I have to go for it. He only has lands, and yeah, it seems like he can smell something in the air.
So this is maybe then. Oh no, I was going to say it's a bit of a punish for not entombing the Sky Shroud thing. The Reach 6/5 was the other card she was considering, but that card could not both fight the 4/4 and then eat the flyer, right? It could only do one because it didn't have the crazy stats. So here, if you're Miranda, do you start swinging with your 11/11? Like you're down 30 life, but that's still it only has to hit them 4 times because it's that big. And you've got your chumper that draws a card, but you've got nothing but lands in hand.
I think you do, and I don't mind seeing it.
Man, so this is just going to be first person to draw a non-land is going to have a big edge here. Like, I think Miranda is happy enough to cash in Prowler to save 4 life and draw a card here. But if she does that and then gets 2 bricks, then she does lose the race still.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we'll see from her is it's basically she'll hold off, and then we'll see what enchantment removal essentially Dan has, or ability to burn, fly over.
Yeah, if that's not the spot you want to be in, though. Like, if you're at 8 life and you cannot attack with your 11/11, you're just you're just dead to removal for the rest of the game, pretty much. That's obviously a tough spot to be. Oh, and she's did get a good hit off of that death trigger. She's got the Goring Warplow here, which is interesting. So she's got Thorn Elemental in hand, 7 mana, super unblockable, super trample, and she's got Gorin Warplow. So she could play both now. She could, if she played Warplow as a 1/1 death touch. I think everything starts with attacking, which, because you've got up to 2 blockers, you're certainly doing. And now she can choose to play the big plow only, or play both. And looks like she's going to play both. I think I like this play. Just make your opponent have, 2 pieces of action. Don't put yourself dead to, not that you're literally dead to removal, but you're going to 1 to removal if you just play one thing.
Yeah.
And Thorn Elemental threatens. Well, hang on. If you block with Cub Warden on Rex, you're taking, and then Thorn Elemental deals 7. You're taking 18 minus 5 and going up to 18. So no, you would live if you fight with only jumping with Cub Warden. Whoa, the attack with both. Okay, what's he got in his hand? Anything?
He has a Gideon's Reproach, which here
so
will...
4. So it doesn't matter too much what he blocks with, because either way, it's just all going to trade off.
Yes.
Okay. But now this is the Titan's just gonna take it home. It looks like. How often do you get to? This has got to be Miranda's dream. Is just getting to hit with her giant 11-11 four times in the same game. Like you
For
gotta love it.
sure. For sure. And yeah, I'm thinking that White Red might not necessarily be able to make it. What sideboarding do we have going on? I know Miranda is a known, very thorough and diligent sideboarder.
She's already
Has
bringing
there been any
in
moves there?
a 1/4 reach. We've got a deck name from Miranda. It's called Back for It All, which I like.
Hmm.
Um, hold on.
Meanwhile, on Dan's side, we have Boros, Boros Downbringer, and he has immediately started with bringing in Blade Banish, which seems like an amazing call. And I think he might be looking at Keldon Overseer, which can definitely solve a problem of an 11-11 trample by recruiting it to your side of the field.
That is an effective answer to an 11-11 trample. That is fair. And we do see, by the way, Miranda only with the one Titan off your Exonair pool. So that visual glitch did not affect deck construction in any way, which is a relief to see.
And yeah, it seems like cycling. Dan has definitely focused on the cycling because he even has a blue startling development in his pool just as a one mana
Oh wow!
cycler.
So how many lands is he running with his with all his cycling cards?
Yeah, he's running 21 lands.
That feels like a part of the appeal for sure.
Yeah. Has taken out the Chorus Bringer, I believe, the one mana toxic white creature from Phyrexia LV1 that dies into a might, and has also taken out the Renewed Faith. I think he's lost a little faith in that card now.
Yeah, it seems maybe good in a race, but when you're trying to get through, green black, gum up the board, maybe not what you're looking for. 3 Expedition Skulkers in Miranda's main board is kind of interesting. I guess, do they all give each other Death Touch? They're all rogues, so if you got 2 of them, they both have Death Touch? Is that how that card works?
Yeah, yeah, that's how it works. And I see, looking over at Miranda's stream a bit, that the 1/4 that was brought in is also a rogue.
Ooh, okay.
So a little bit of extra defensive action.
Yeah, why not? I love that final parting made the deck. That's such a good like one-stop shop for your 2-card combo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit sad the Tiebreaker Giant didn't make the deck, but I get it. You've got a lot of big cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really like. I wonder if this is in some ways a meta call because she knew her first round matchup was Dan. Like, she's already extremely tilted her deck towards just cheap creatures that block well, like the Mosscoat Goriacs in the main, the Feral Prowlers in the main, 3 Expedition Stalkers. Like, maybe that was just the soul read on Dan as a Boros player at heart and trying to win her round 1.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand as well, you only really need to hit that, right? So unless they've got removal, that thing is going to end the game.
Yeah, very true.
So, what else do you think is on Miranda's mind as she continues sideboarding here?
Well, I gotta imagine being on the draw isn't sitting great with her. Like this seems like a matchup where play draw matters a ton. It looks like she's given it enough thought. She's ready for the match to begin. So we're gonna see game 2.
Dan going on the play. Looks like a keepable hand with 2 lands, 5 spells. Has a Gustwalker to start, followed up with removal, either in Gideon's Reproach, Prison Realm, or Excavation Explosion. And then once he hits 4 mana, he's got a Scrapper Champion, which is a 2/2 double strike that can grow into a 3/3 double strike if it spends the energy afterwards. So a decent curve out. Is going to need a little help potentially with getting a 3-drop ideally and getting those lands. But creatures with removal to back it up, hopeful start. What are we looking at for Miranda?
Maranda has an interesting keep mall decision here. She's got 3 forests, 1 black spell, 3 green spells. 2 of her green spells cycle themselves. She's got the Greater Samurai and the Titanothrax, but it's a very slow hand. Nothing doing other than cycling until you play Pima Outrider on turn 4, and no way to cast Totally Invasion, so which is her 1 black spell. So it looks like this is a mulligan, and she's drawn 4 lands, 2 spells after she puts a land back. Not ideal, but it has a turn 3 play, an Excavation Mole, and it has Wild Wanderer as your other spell. So slightly faster and has both colors of mana. So mulligan worked out okay for her.
Yeah, seems very reasonable and has paid off.
So we're going to see more.
So Dan here.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, as you can see, Dan here has not hit his land. What he has drawn was Aether Chaser, and then before that, the Cartouche of Solidarity for a little bit of extra power.
So Cartouche is going to let Aether Chaser attack past, or whichever one he puts it on. Let one of them attack past this Excavation Mole, I believe. That's the first strike +1 and a 1/1?
I believe... is it first strike that it gives? Let me check. Yes, +1/+1 and first strike.
Yeah.
So potentially can put first strike on the Gustwalker.
Yeah, it's funny, like, you don't want to put it on Aether Chaser because it's sort of wasting the first strike, but... Oh, does he have something here?
Yes, he has Hexgold Slash to win this combat.
That does explain this play. And against, this is probably a better use of resources. It just didn't on its own get the Chaser past the 3/3 trample. And that block, by the way, was more or less forced. Like, you're already under a ton of pressure here. Like, this is a really not a good situation here. So you're going to see her use the Overwhelming Remorse. Her other option was Wild Wander, which doesn't block, which blocks 2 of the 7 power, so that's not all that effective. Next turn, she does have a Bitterbow Sharpshooter she can play, which will threaten to block everything. Although I think, as you mentioned, Dan had a pacifism in hand, is that right?
Yes, has a Prison Realm, actually,
Prison
in
Realm,
hand.
okay. So, yeah, that's going to pretty cleanly answer this 4/4 here, if that's what he wants.
Though I think he has to be slightly regretting his decision to put Shelter in off of only 21 lands, because this is twice now that it has shown up and prevented him from developing it further out on a turn.
Does he have any cycling in hand, and he's just been choosing to keep it, or is he just, he's just been playing what he's got?
He has a Vantasaur in hand, which I think he's going to be cycling.
Okay. Miranda's going to be able to double spell here. She's got Expedition Skulker, and Wild Wander. She's going to play 2 creatures, neither of which block Aether Chaser, but which, with their powers combined, can block Aether Chaser. And she's got an Eviscerate in hand, so she's still got gain here against, the beatdown, but being at 8 with your opponent having, going up to 5 cards is certainly a difficult spot.
Right. I think it is a little bit... It's slightly regrettable, perhaps, that Dan cycled later, because he's now drawn 2 lands in a row, and I think he could be at 5 mana. Not that it matters too much for how his play sequence is right now, but if, say, he draws another land next turn, he would have been able to do double spell on his removals.
Yeah, it looks like here he's just going to play... Yeah, he's got 2 creatures now that cannot be blocked by just 1. I'm surprised he played it pre-combat, right? Because the double block now is a lot easier, and he's not even going to attack. Was there a reason he did that, or was that just sort of maybe a misplay?
I think he just he knew that it was either he was going to not attack and then play it, or that he played it and considered attacking, but. So it wasn't fully considered.
Yeah, I can buy not attacking being the right play there. It did just sort of look like he maybe didn't quite make up his mind before playing the creature.
Call out from Maxime, which is notable, is Aether Chaser could have used the energy had he felt like doing that attack, and will be using the energy now.
Interesting. Oh, that energy came from playing the double striker. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So here
I've
I
got
got to
full
imagine
block.
interesting block. I assume you just take out the Wild Wanderer, but you might be
Mhm.
afraid of the Death Touch on the Skulker and take that out. Ooh, wow. We've got a heck of a draw here from Miranda. It's a banger. It's I'll give you one guess what
Is it
it
back
is.
for more?
No. It's a creature.
No. Oh. Ooh. Draina.
Yeah. Oh wow, it's got
Beautiful.
a cool animation as well.
Unfortunately, just gonna get Prison Round,
That is unfortunate.
but uh, it's what you have to expect, given that you haven't played a whole lot of very threatening creatures yet.
I will say
And
Dan has been, I think, benefiting from sort of carefully saving his impactful cards. Like the Sarah's Realm last game would have been really easy to try to curve it out and get blown out by Miranda's removal. But instead he saved it and was able to put it on and make that 2-1 into a threat when it wasn't doing anything. And then here he's
Right.
done sort of the same thing with Prison Realm, resisted using it on the Deathbloom Thallid, and had an answer for a card that otherwise would have just won Miranda a game. So credit to Dan for the patience there in both instances.
Mhm.
And here...
And here,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say he has top decked a Cub Warden, and notably the Vigilance Warrior is not a human, so he could actually put it on that instead of on the Servo.
We got to call a flavor judge here because this just seemed wrong to me.
And I think he's gonna go for it by shooting. I would perhaps imagine the Expedition Skulker, yeah, because
Right,
it
that gets a
has
blocker
one
out
less.
of the way.
Yeah.
This is really brutal now for Miranda. Like she's whiffed on a couple of draws where she really needed to hit some action, and meanwhile Dan has continued to expand his board and go wide. She's drawn a creature here, but it'll just be a blocker and she will be dead on board. So she's just gonna take us to game 3, where she will be on the play and probably have better odds there than she did in that most recent one.
Yeah. On the play, on the draw, hard to win a game when you draw that number of lands, I suppose.
Yeah, I did feel there like she had, I think, like maybe 8 out of 15 cards were lands or something like that, just eyeballing. Any changes from Dan's side of the picture?
Not so far. I'll keep you abreast of any
Sure.
updates. How about on Miranda's side?
Nothing right now. I'm realizing I'm a bit surprised that she's opted for the Wild Wanderers over the Oasis Ritualist. Just I know they're both sort of in the 4-mana ramp slot, but 2/4 blocks better than the 3/2 in my mind. It looks like she's bringing in Doom Dissenter for a forest. I think the flood that game might have got to her a bit. Understandable. Doom Dissenter also great card to throw in front of aggro bodies, right? Like Dan's playing a lot of 2/1s and probably I know he's got at least 1 3/1 in there. So it might do the 2-for-1 thing, and if not, it chumps, and then you've still got a 2/2. It's a good outcome either way.
Yeah. Dan looks like he geared up slightly. Well, he made one swap just to bring in the 4/2, essentially the 4/2, the Volshock splitter. So gearing up for maybe a little bit more defensive and a little bit more able to make his regular creatures slightly bigger and attack and get over whatever Miranda has out. Has decided to mulligan a 1-lander.
Okay. Miranda's kept an interesting hand here. She's got 5 forests and 2 green spells, which are Feral Prowler and Mosscoat Boreac. So they block well. I think that might have motivated the keep, is just how good those cards are against aggro. But very much at risk of drawing black spells, drawing more forests. There's a lot of ways this hand turns out badly, but she liked it over a mulligan, and I think it's certainly defensible, and it's got a bunch of cards which are great at being defenders. So we'll see how it goes.
And it's interesting what Dan has. He'll need to get something nice and aggressive early because he's got 2 lands, then drew 1 just now, and he's got a Vantasaur, Gideon's Reproach, Prison Realm, and Excavation Explosion. So no actual creatures, just removal.
Off that hand, I'm surprised he didn't cycle the Vantasaur turn 1. Like you said, he only had 2 lands.
Uh, only had two lands, but has drawn his third
Oh, I see. Okay.
in the first draw.
Um, yeah, Miranda's drawing land, although at least one of them was a swamp. But that's really your worst case scenario off this keep. Her hand is now a series of forests. It's
Hmm.
like the northern Ontario, just forests as far as the eye can see.
Still opting to not cycle Vantasaur. I think he wants
Jesus.
to potentially land it as a
Yeah, we're
3/6, given that he has this removal.
Miranda's drawn consecutive land number 3 here and was searching for an appropriately sad emote to represent how she feels about that. Um,
Yeah.
that's pretty brutal.
All right. Dan has now chosen to cycle. Let me update you a bit on what is now in his hand.
Mm.
The Volshok Splitter, as you saw, which was his sideboard card. He also has a Shepherd in hand and a Lauren's Escape to protect his creatures.
Okay. Miranda's drawn a quite good card here, which is going to make Pharaoh Prowler into a real blocker again. Um, I don't think you're attacking here, but we'll see.
It would be hard to imagine. So,
Yeah.
oh, very interesting. Dan has now drawn a Cub Warden to potentially make a 5/5. Wait, no. Are these rebels with humans?
Uh,
Uh, Let me take a look. Red Rebel Creature Token. Yes, that makes sense because the people on Phyrexia, they're rebels, but they're not all humans.
right.
It's inclusive.
All right. There's
Um,
Rishkar down,
yeah.
and
And I think what Dan is considering now is, do I attack with Lauren's up to protect my 4/2?
so she's
He's going
just
to be
going to
going with.
trade Lauren's Escape for the Pharaoh Prowler, as opposed to trading the 4/2. Okay, so this is Miranda's at least going to get 2 cards here. She's going to be facing down a 4/2, but a lot of her, best hits are bigger than a 4/2. She's drawn a land and she's drawn a subtle strike. That's some bad beats.
Those are some terrible beats, in fact. Meanwhile, Dan has a lot of gas in hand. He's got Basilica Shepherd, Cub Warden, and Prison Realm. For when Miranda finally draws that one big strong creature, it's
Ooh.
immediately going to be tossed away.
Having the prison realm just makes her task so much harder. I mean, she can kill a mite here, but that's pretty weak tea. Expedition Skulker. Okay, well she can play out a 2/2. Have it block the
Hmm.
4/2. And then see, I guess, if Dan wants to move the splitter to the shepherd and start hitting the air. Like that is the one thing Miranda's going for, is her life total is still pretty high.
Yes.
Although I don't expect that to last all that long. But we'll see. She's got another turn or two to draw some gas.
Yeah. And Dan here has drawn a Warlord's Elite and
That's
is
nice. Tap the equipment.
wisely tapping down his
It's cute.
wisely tapping his equipment for
Very
it,
cute.
and might even potentially go on for a full attack.
If he does a full attack, the subtle strike does get a 2-for-1 here, effectively,
Mhm.
because you make your guy a 3/3, kill the mite. You still probably do that. It's just not eating their 2/2 as well.
Yeah.
So good patience again by Dan. They're paying off for him. That's another land for Miranda. So we're now at 10 lands out of, I want to say, 15 cards.
Yeah, and finally Dan has matched her with another land of his own, but is going to mutate, make a toxic Cup Warden
Oh God.
that adds some babies.
That's a lot of damage. That's 10 coming in. Chumping doesn't delay the clock by a turn, so I think you just take it.
And I think Miranda is probably dead here, most
Yeah,
certainly, no matter what she draws.
that'll do it. So we saw the Beat Danbringer taking down Miranda 2-1 with some unfortunate draws for Miranda in that game, and we will be following Dan into round 2.